Hello everyone, welcome to TechWebDots. Today I am going to discuss Azure Resource Manager template for Azure Functions. So let's move ahead without wasting time. This is part 2 of Azure Resource Manager templates, and if you are interested in Azure Function, App Service and ARM templates, I strongly recommend you to check out the playlist of the channel. Okay, let's move ahead. So in the ARM template structure, I have already shared in my previous session, but let me revise a bit. Visual Studio Code plus Azure Resource Manager tool extension. This is the brilliant combination for creating ARM template structure. And if you can recall, a simple ARM JSON template looks like with these special components that contains schema, contentVersion, parameters, functions, variables, resources, and output. So you can also use Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI. You have to sign in with Azure credential, and definitely you must be having a resource group in the background, and you should also use the command line interface. Either you can use the command shell from Azure Portal, or you can download these tools on your machine and you can use it. And for resource properties, you can use the ARM template reference to find out the resources types that you want to deploy. If it is not clear, wait for a moment, I will share in my next screen. So if you recall, there are especially three components: schema, contentVersion and resources. And this basic schema, we says this is the ARM template without resources. So what is the meaning of this? So when we talk about schema, it specifies the location of the JSON schema file, and the schema file describes the properties that are available within the template. And don't worry about the date for the schema. For example, this 2019-401, the schema version is up to date, and it includes all of the latest features. So if you are worrying about if there are different versions also available, but you don't need to worry about it, will work as perfect as possible. Okay, you don't need to make any changes if you are using other version, just use as it is. Let's talk about the contentVersion. Specify the version of the template, such as 1.0.1. okay, 0.0. You can provide any values for this element. When you deploy resources using the template, you can use this value to make sure you are using the right template. So these three are the mandatory one especially. And let me talk about the third one, resources. It contains the resources that you want to deploy or update. As you can see, this is the array symbol. You can specify multiple resources. Parameter is not the mandatory one, but you can specify, and in that we specify values that are provided when deployment is executed to customize resources deployment. And there is one more, which is variable, in that values that are used as JSON fragments in the template to simplify the template language and expression. Don't worry, I will show you in a practical manner through my Visual Studio Code. Okay, don't worry, just wait for some time. And the last one is functions. You can create your own user-defined functions, or you can use the inbuilt one that are available within the template. And the last one is output. It is the value that return after the deployment. For example, you deploy the Azure Function app, so in return you can get the name of the app, so that you can further add the Azure Functions in that app. Okay, now if you talk about ARM templates for resource properties, for example, this is our resource, and what we see, this type is Microsoft storage, and this is for storage account. So every resource you deploy has at least the following three properties. For example, in the previous section we see there are three mandatory sections which are required to specify the schema. Similarly, for resource as well, at least three properties are mandatory. What are those? One is type. It is actually the type of the resource. This value is a combination of the namespace of the resource provider and the resource type. We can see Microsoft storage, and along with that storage account. Second one, API version, the version of the REST API to use for creating the resources, and each resource provider publishes its own API version. For example, here we have 2019-0401. So this value is specific to the type. So don't worry, because I have explained in more detail in my previous session. I strongly recommend you to watch that before this. And the last one is name, which is very important. You should also specify name of the resource that you want to create. The another one is the location, and most resources also have the location properties which sets the region where you deploy the resources, and generally we pick the same location in which we create the resource group, which is another requirement for creating Azure Functions along with the resources. Note, the other properties may vary by resource type and the API version. For example, we are talking about storage, and there can be different type of resources, for example VM, for example network, for example we are creating queues, we are getting service bus. So properties may change according to the type of the resource. Now, as we know, okay, now we talk about the Azure Functions, our main agenda with ARM template. So you can see there are especially at least two requirements. One, Azure Function app that we need to create, it is a required one, and a storage account. Why we need a storage account with Azure Functions? And the link is given in the description of this video, where I have cleared how Azure Function works behind the scene, and that requires a storage account, especially of version 2. Okay, so you must have an Azure account with an active subscription, because if you don't have subscription, then you cannot deploy these resources. You can develop locally, but definitely you cannot deploy, right? Or I will suggest you to take the free subscription and deploy and practice as much as possible. Okay, so Azure function deployment typically consists of these resources. The mandatory one is the function app resource. It's defined by using a resource type Microsoft.web. We can see Microsoft.web oblique sites, and the kind is function app. Another one is a storage account is required for function app. You need a general purpose account that supports blobs, tables, queues, and file. These are required for the background processing, or you can say if we are using the durable function. I strongly recommend you to watch the internal mechanism of durable function video. Link is given. And another one is the app inside, which is recommended by Microsoft, and this we attach with the function for monitoring purpose. It is strongly recommended. And another one is the hosting plan, and it is only required when you choose to run your function app on a premium plan or on an app service plan, because you can also create app service with function app. Okay, but now our focus is on only ARM template with function. So after creating the function app, you can deploy Azure function project code to the app. Means you can add different functions to the Azure function app. Okay, now, so how the whole picture looks like when you are specifying the Azure functions. So there are a few more properties that you need to specify. For example, Azure Web Jobs Storage, and what it is a connection string to a storage account that the function runtime uses for internal queuing. Okay, and for example, we can see the storage account one, and the function extension version. This is the version of the Azure function runtime that you want to use, for example 4, or you can use a previous one as well if there is any dependency. Another one is functions worker runtime. It means it is a language stack to be used for the function app. For example, the kind of code you want to use in your function app, that is based on .NET, Node, Java, Python, or PowerShell. Okay, the last one is website node default version, only needed if using the node language pack on Windows is specific to the version to use. For example, it is 14 now. Okay, and when you will create, so how the whole function app will look like. Okay, we specify the web public site, we specify the version, name, parameter, in the kind it is function app, its identity, what identity it will use so that anyone can access, by what means or by what way, and the properties, server farm, client affinity, setting, HTTP only, and what are the resources on which depend on. So depends on says first these two things will be created, then this function app will be created. So first storage account will be created, name will be given as a parameter. Okay, and the second one is the Microsoft Insight component. We are saying okay, this is what we want to use and we should also deploy this. This is mandatory one, and another mandatory one is the storage account. So yes, we have seen previously as well, storage account also contains the type, API version name, location, kind, which is storage v2, and the our SKU name, in which we are specifying the storage account type. Now it's time to move on to the Visual Studio Code and to see all these things in a practical manner. I have also showcased you all these things on Azure Portal as well. So let's move ahead. This is my Azure Portal, as I have already showcased you earlier as well. So this is my resource group, and under this you can see these are the 4 resources. So generally when you want to create a template, so there are multiple ways, right, through which you can create templates. There are especially 4 options through which you can create ARM templates, especially for Azure Functions. So number 1 is export option through Azure Portal. You go to the portal, go to the existing Azure function, go to export option and just export the JSON file and use it for redeploying the Azure function. Second, from custom deployment template, you choose the custom deployment, and when you select that, then there are n number of templates that you can choose to deploy any number of resources and any kind of resource, and I will showcase you. And the third one is through Visual Studio Code and extension. You go to the Visual Studio Code, you use the ARM extension, and you create the resources as you want with the all customization and properties. And the last one is use the ARM template library by Microsoft, through which you can browse n number of resources creation templates. Okay, so I will leave all the important links in the description of this video, but these are the 4 very important ways through which you can create ARM template. So let's focus on very first one. Here you can see this is my existing resource group, and earlier I published these resources. We have app insight demo, and we have Azure function app. You can see this is connection string, and this is my app service plan. So if I want the existing function, okay, through which I want my template so that I can redeploy again and again, I will just go to the on the left menu, and you can see here is the export template option. And if you will come here, it takes few moments, maybe it depends on your computer speed. It will generate a whole template which is required to regenerate the function app. You can see a template is generated over here. You can see about the parameters. If you will click on parameter, you can see there are 2 parameters generated. One is Azure Service Demo and one is for plan. And if you go to the variable, there is no variable. If you go to the resources, there are total 8 resources that we are creating here. Okay, you can just minimize one by one and you can check what it is creating. It is creating site, this is our resource, and it is creating policies for credential. This is the second one. It is creating again credential policy which is required, which is based on my existing plan. Okay, and again it is creating for type is site configuration. Okay, another one, it is for my function, for example the activity trigger that I use in my Azure function. And another one is my this is my HTTP trigger through which my activity will be called, and this is the orchestration trigger which is used to orchestrate the activity. Okay, and this is our host name binding that we are using. So all these things are created. One way is you can copy from here and use it any way you want. Okay, you can see you have a download option, you can add it to the library. Okay, and you can directly even deploy it, and you can also visualize this template as well. If I click on visualize, okay, so it is generating actually the visualizer. As of now this is not showing much, but this is what I just want to show you what you can do in terms of export option. Okay, now what is the another way? Another way is by creating the customized one. If I go to home here, and if I choose, let me type here for you so that you can easily remember. If we specify the custom template, deploy a custom template, I select it. Okay, so here you can see build your own template. If you click on this, then you will see editor where you can paste your ARM template. Another way is you can use the existing one. Okay, you can see the quick start template, and you can see there are a number of templates are available. If you type here function, so you can see all the function. You can see function app create dynamic, this is function app dedicated GitHub deploy, function app dedicated plan. So I strongly recommend you to explore all these options. Okay, so this is the second way. And then if I click on this edit, so I can paste my script here and it will work perfectly fine, and it will deploy. You can just add to resource or add to quick start template. Okay, so this is my second way. Okay, now let's go back to our third option, which is from Visual Studio and Azure Resource Manager extension template. This is my Visual Studio Code, and here I have a template ready for function. But before that, let me show you how you can create your own. For example, if I specify here arm.json, okay, I just hit enter. So this is my Azure Resource Manager template file, and what I type here arm, okay. So it is giving me the basic block structure for creating any resource with arm template, okay. And for example, we want to create the function, okay. So it is also showcasing by IntelliSense, okay, this is the existing template that you can use. And if I click over here, so you will see everything is auto generated and you can change accordingly. You can see the name of the app will be function name, the resource name, and this is the type, which is website, that we already know, API version. Resource group name, it will be picked automatically, the kind, and the resources, server form, and the storage account that I said it is required. And I was talking about these properties under app setting. We are using Azure Web Dashboard, Azure Web Storage, and content share, and website content, Azure connection string, right, and the extension version. And you can see here function worker runtime. This is very important. You have to specify what kind of code that you want to run on this function app that you have to choose, so you can change it, right. I just moved earlier, it was .NET, right. You can specify node as well, okay. So let me select .NET here. So this is my third way through which you can create, but I can just save it. So this is also saved, but I will also show you the customized version that I created. In that you will see the combination of parameter, variable, and resources. So if you will see under parameters, you can see I am using the parameter of type string, okay, and the parameter name is function name, and here I am formatting its value. func will be used as a prefix, okay, and we are generating a unique string with the help of resource group ID, okay. This is my first parameter, and the second parameter, it's metadata. It is just talking about its description, the name of the Azure function. So these are the two. This is my first parameter, and the second is the storage account parameter. I am saying, okay, it is of string type, default value will be standard, and allowed values for the default values is standard LRS. It is locally redundant, and metadata is storage account type, okay. This is the second one. And the third one is location. So location we are picking from the resource group itself, okay. This is type is string. So I hope, and the fourth one is function worker runtime. So we are saying default values .NET, but otherwise you can also select Node, Python, Java, and other one. It's according to your need. So these four are the parameters. If we talk about variable, we are using 3 variable. In variable, how we specify, this is a particular syntax that we use in the JSON, okay. It is hosting plan name, okay. We are saying from the parameter what it needs to fetch the function name, that will become my host plan name, okay. And again, in application inside, I am also using this variable. Don't worry, these will not be used as it is, but definitely we will concatenate or adding prefix or postfix so that we can uniquely distinguish all these things. But we are creating variable. Application inside name will be our function name that will be fetched from the parameter, and storage account name, it is, we are doing formatting here and appending AZ function in the Azure function name, and unique string we are creating from the resource group ID, okay. So we have seen parameter, we have seen variable. Now we talk about the resources. As you can see, 1 2 3 4, total 4 we are talking about for resources. The very first one is storage account. We have discussed many times. I don't think so it is required again, but still, this is API version. Name, we are using variable. Location, we are fetching from the parameters. SKU, that we have selected storage type from the parameter, and its storage type, okay. First one is fine. Let's move to second one. Second one is the web or server farm, which is actually our hosting plan name that we want to use. SKU is y1, it's dynamic, size 1, and y1. Don't worry, all these properties are given on the Microsoft Azure portal. You can go there and check it. You will find it very easy, and I will showcase you just after this, after deploying, okay. And another one is Microsoft Insight component. This is the App Insight, which is recommended by Microsoft. Whenever you are deploying functions, you should also use App Insight for monitoring, okay. And it is of type web, you can see by the namespace. And the last one is the website, which is our actual function app, and under that we can add our different type of function. So you can see we have properties here. Under app setting we have all the properties that I was talking about, including the no default version, server farm, and the worker time we have already specified as a parameter, right? And if I talk about depends on, so what my function app is saying, before creating this function app, what I want, Azure inside app inside should be there in place, and server form hosting plan should be there in place, and the third one, storage account, should be there in place, and then it will create the function app. So you don't need to worry about anything. What you all need to do is just run this template. So what I'm doing, I will just copy this template from here. Okay, I will just copy this and just move to the Azure portal. This is my Azure portal. This is the most recent one that I have visited. So we have seen the deploy template one, the custom deployment template. I am saying build my own. If I just control all and press the control V, so I can see here it is automatically distinguish all three things for me, right? It is saying you are using 4 parameters: function name, account type, location, and function worker runtime. And 3 variables I am using: hosting plan name, application inside, and application account name. And the last one is the resources that I want to create. Okay, so what I need to do, I have to just save it. Okay, now it is asking about the resource group. So let me create a resource group just for this demo so that you can understand better. So I have to click on create new, mention here rmg2. Okay, and I have to select the region. Let me select the region. Okay, let me select the North Europe, which is fine for me. LRS and .NET is also. See, all these things are automatically picked from the template itself. If we click on review and create, okay, now it is validating actually our template is correct or not. Validation passed. I can click on create. So you will see all these resources are going to deploy behind the scene. Okay, even you can track it. If I click over here and just move here, so I can see this deployment is in progress. Meanwhile, I want to show you what are the existing Microsoft resources that you can use to increase your skills while you are creating ARM templates. So you can see all these components are creating one by one. Now you can see it says my deployment is successfully completed, right? If I click on go to resources, okay, you can see we created a new resource group, which is ARM RG. It is part 2, so I just give it name like this. You can see FUNC is used as a prefix in all. Okay, so storage account is there, app service plan is there, function app is there, and our app insight is there. If I click on my function, so you can see my function is ready, and I can add the function over here. I can add all the things which are required. If I click on function, I can add any. Okay, so this is the most simplest way to create the Azure function through ARM template. I hope you like this video. And one more thing, this is very important. When you are doing practice all these things, don't forget to delete your resources if you are not using it. Okay, and yes, another thing is, for example, other very important links. So this is one of the way. It is step by step that guide you, but still I shown you how you can create or deploy your any first ARM template. Okay, and this is the link for pricing. I mean, how it really works, what is the serverless or pay as you go, or with the app service model. Okay, and this is the ARM template function, where you can see what are the different inbuilt function that we can use in the array itself. Okay, I hope all concepts are clear. At least now you know better what you know previously after this session. If you have any question, any comment, so just leave into the comment box. I will try to reply on that as soon as possible, and I strongly recommend you to give your feedback. That's the only inspiration for me to create such videos. So I will see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.